All right, welcome everybody. Welcome to our Facebook Live. Today we're going to be talking about proofing, and I'm going to be looking a lot in this direction because that's where Sarah set up a chair and a little table, so she's my tech support today. I'll be giving you most of the presentation. Let's start by, first actually I just want to give everybody maybe another 30 seconds to go ahead and get into the live. We just got started. I'm going to need to see a thumbs up for good audio, good video. If the screen freezes at any time, you usually have to restart the application. So you need to exit Facebook, whether you're on your desktop or your phone, come back into the app, click on it again. You should be okay. If you miss any part of this, there's always a replay available. It goes up almost immediately after we're done. And so you'll have a chance to review everything we've talked about, especially for those of you who are coming in late. Also, you can ask questions at any time. We're going to get to all of your questions at the end. Put them right up on the screen. And for those of you who are watching this replay later, a couple of days later, we do come behind and we get notifications of questions that are left, so we can come and answer your questions even if it's a day or two later. All right, do we have some thumbs up?
We do, and we have comments on the screen.
All right, very good. Okay, everything looks like it's good to go, so I'm going to go ahead and get started. And first I want to start with a very basic question for you guys. What is proofing? And in my view, proofing is when you take a behavior and you do it in a bunch of different situations so that ultimately the dog can do it anywhere. But most specifically, what are we going for? What do? We do dog agility. And so we want our dogs to do these behaviors at an agility trial. And that's important to keep in mind when we think about proofing and how we want to proof our dogs. Agility handlers are going to proof their dogs a little bit differently from obedience handlers because we're looking for different performances. And remember, one of the things that we're looking for in agility is speed and confidence. Now, why should you proof your dog? Right? You're here, you're watching this Facebook Live. Why do I need to do this? It's about setting expectations for your dog. I think really that's the best way to do it. I want to tell my dog, hey buddy, whatever you're going to see at a trial, you can do it because you've already done it at home, maybe at your weekly class, and it's not a big deal. In fact, buddy, you've probably done something harder at home. And so when you get to the trial situation, ideally it's easier. Whatever you're doing there is going to be easier. We get into trouble when things are better at home and they're a lot harder at trial. So we kind of want to flip that. We want to make the home environment tougher on the dogs, and if they can excel and succeed in that tough environment, then when things are a little bit easier, they're going to be really, really good. Okay, so that's kind of why we do that. And related to all of this is, when should you introduce proofing? Now, once upon a time in dog training, long time ago, people thought proofing was kind of like icing on the cake. It's the last step. You bake your delicious cake first. Last thing you do, icing on the cake, throw on some sprinkles and you're done. But top trainers today incorporate proofing almost right from the start. At the very ground level when we're building these behaviors, this includes obstacles, this includes basic behaviors like downs and sits. All right, now what are the kind of distractions that we should be training for? And I want to make a quick note here that when I talk about distractions, we want to talk about and train distractions, not things that terrify or scare your dog. Okay, there's a distinction between the two. If something is very scary for your dog, and I have a great example with my own Border Collie, then it's not something that you need for proofing. You just take it right out of your proofing. In that case, for her, it was someone opening an umbrella. So she found that not just startling, but actually terrifying. And so that's not a line of proofing you want to continue down. We're not looking to scare the dogs. We're looking to find things that distract them. If your dog has fearful issues, environmental sensitivities, things along that line, then you have other things that you need to work on that really don't have to do too much with proofing. So you need some behavioral help with your dog. All right, so back to the types of distractions. 3 broad categories I want you guys to think about. We want to break these down into environment, the handler, and then rewards. And by rewards, I mean food and toys. And let me go into a little bit of detail here, and I've got some great videos for you guys. So the first broad category is environmental. And that's going to include different equipment, any noise or sounds the dogs may encounter at a trial, especially speakers. You know, the speakers where people talk and they're like, so and so, please report to ring number 3. You're missing your run. And other people, dogs, objects like cameras. I think that some good example, let's just take a look at these wings over here. So you notice that this wing, there's a gap here between these spokes. What this means, especially for little dogs, is the little dog can see the handler even if I'm hiding behind here. Even if I'm crouched down here, the little dog can see me. Whereas on this jump over here, these are solid wings. Can't go through them. Dog can't see through them. So there might be a situation on a 3-jump lead out, you lead out, and then your little dog, if you have placed them right behind a wing, can see you here, but they can't see you over there. That's something you need a proof for, right? So the dog can be comfortable when they don't see you, when they do see you. Those are things that you have to think about. These are differences in equipment. Another one, we don't have one here. I'm just going to pull it out real quick, come off camera just for a moment. And I want you guys to think about today's agility. Today's agility is all about wing jumps like we have out here. But what about the good old wingless jump? So if you go to a lot of facilities, they are heavily invested in wing jumps, but at trials in many organizations, not all organizations, at many organizations you still have wingless jumps where it's just kind of the bar, right? And so if you do 99% of your training over here on wing jumps, you have not proofed your dog on wingless jumps. And so here we get not so much refusals, but run-bys. So a green dog kind of uses these wings and eyeballs it. And they say, okay, I need to come in between these 2 wings. Over here, there's kind of, I don't know what I'm shooting for here. I really don't know. And you get a lot of run-bys, right, where they don't actually take the jump. Let me go ahead and take this out now. So those are examples of proofing for equipment. Teeters. They may drop at different rates, so you generally want to get your dog on different teeters. Even dog walks have different amounts of bounce. That wasn't something that I ever worried about when I had dogs with stop contacts, but when you have running contacts and bouncy dog walks cause a dog to lose confidence, it throws off their striding and then suddenly they start missing. So if I have a very stable dog walk at home and I have a great running contact and then I go to my first trial and the dog walk is bouncy, my dog is more likely to miss. And this is why you'll see running dog walk trainers at trials during the walkthrough. And they're constantly pushing on and they're going and complaining to the ring crew and the judge, can we put some more bags on the dog walk? This is why they're doing that. They're trying to take the bounce out of the dog walk so their dog can have an experience that's more similar to what they have at home. And so this is why you need to do proofing even for running dog walks. It used to be the case, I think it was in Europe, where dog walk heights could differ by as much as 6 to 12 inches. So that would also throw off your striding for running contact people. Again, not so much for stop contact people. And so you'd want to get your dog on different equipment. When we first started agility in the AKC, we had a trial somewhere up in Dallas, and they didn't have full-size equipment. So they had like a mini dog walk, right? It was a shorter plank. I want to say 8 feet, maybe 10 feet, but it wasn't a full regulation dog walk. I mean, it met the requirement, but at that time it was like a miniaturized version of the equipment. And so those are all things you need to think about. The tire looks different. It's painted different colors. Weave poles are different colors these days. The new fancy trend that people like, instead of white weave poles with striped pieces of tape, now just very solid colors. So maybe a blue and an orange, blue, orange, blue, orange, all solid colored. And so dogs sometimes struggle with that. So these are all equipment proofs that you guys need to think about before you get out there and trial, if possible. Sometimes you just run into situations where that's not possible. Noise, I think, is a big one. Indoor arenas, there's a lot of echoing. So especially if you go to these sports indoor complexes or up north, wherever you are, Europe, Canada, in the United States, wintertime, there's a lot of ambient noise that's very different from outdoor sound. So if you have an outdoor dog, our dogs train here in the backyard, maybe you run in horse arenas, and then your national championship event is indoors, and that's your first indoor show, it's a very good idea you go to at least one trial that's indoors before you get to that national championship, right? And you want to try and think of this as proofing. You're generalizing these behaviors to different environments. Sarah, go ahead and play the first weave video. I'm going to walk over there and take a look. Okay, so here we have Miriam doing some weave pulls. I've got Isaac standing around. Now I've got Isaac. He opens an umbrella as she exits. Now here, as soon as he opens the umbrella, watch what happens. Boom, she pops right out of the weaves. And we double check it again. She pops out again when the umbrella goes up. So I go ahead and tell him, hey, leave the umbrella open the whole time. And she's okay with that, so she could do that. Here he's playing his French horn. So we've got noise. And here we have an obstacle that's very close, I think less than 4 feet away. This is Carissa and her Border Collie Jedi. She's a VIP member, and she graciously allowed us to use this video. You can see that she's dropping toys, and the dog is going to have to ignore these toys as they come through the weave poles. And this is a high level of proofing. If you haven't done this with your dog and you have weave pole problems, you can be doing more. This is the kind of level that you want to work up to. When your dog can do this, you're going to get better weave pole performances in the trial setting. And now let's go ahead and play contact video 1. We're going to go roll right into the next video. This demonstration is going to be Sarah with Venture. You see how we put a tunnel under the dog walk. That changes the dog's opinion of the dog walk. And what we have here is toy on the ground. Now take a look at what I'm going to do here. Again, this is similar to what you saw Carissa do with Jedi. We've got toys on the ground. And what's interesting here is you're going to see the dog fail. They're going to freeze. They're not going to be in proper position. So watch this. So he stops. He's got 4 on. He's supposed to come, I believe, at least 1 foot off. And so you see he moves into position very, very slowly, right? And the presence of the toy makes it unclear to him. But we worked through that, and now he can do it, and now he can have that confidence. So when you're at a trial and a toy accidentally falls out of the pocket of the competitor running before you and no one notices, and it's right there at the bottom of the dog walk, your dog is going to be fine. You're going to be fine because you trained that distraction. You have proofed it. Now here, I am acting as the distraction. Here I'm raising my arms, moving my arms, standing close, and here I'm about to put on a hat. Okay, so tall guys with mustaches and beards and hats. I think a lot of you have run into situations where the judge has had an impact on how your dog viewed the environment. And here I'm clapping my hands, so that gives us sound and sight. And so these are examples of distractions that you can be doing with your dog. All right, I really like the speaker one, setting up a little, your phone, hook them into some speakers, and then blast music, especially with big booming bass sounds. That can really help, I think, with dogs who have tendencies to be thunderphobic. Because when they get into those large indoor venues where they play music and they do disc dog demonstrations and things like that, and your dog's not used to hearing those booming sounds, they might think it's thunder, right? And then they'll really struggle. But if you start them small, start them a little bit here in your home environment, and you play different kinds of music. You don't want to always play classical piano. You kind of want to get into the songs that you're going to hear at these things. That's just something to think about. Another level of proofing. Okay, next we're going to talk about the handler. So what we just did was we talked about environment, the sound, other people, other dogs, objects lying on the ground, right? Pieces of duct tape. We all saw some dogs struggle at Westminster when they attached the cameras to the dog walk at the base of the weave poles, and dogs stopped or popped out or slowed down or at least looked at it, and that's undesirable. So when you're going to those special venues where they have cameras, I would have someone with a big object here that looked like a camera, and when my dog's on a start line, I would have them come zoom in just like the real camera person is going to do at those events. Okay, on to the next one, which is handler. Everything with the handler includes body position, motion, and talking. Anything you might be doing as a handler. This is a really big one because environmental stuff is a big deal, no doubt. We all know examples of that. But the majority of time, your dog is watching you, right? And they become very in tune to the little things that you do that you don't even realize that you're doing. And in today's agility, we like most of our performances and releases off of contacts and start lines to be verbal only. Meaning it doesn't matter what we're doing with our body. Once we give the okay, or we cue the next obstacle, we want the dog to immediately run and take that obstacle. And so they pay a lot of attention to us, and so those are things we need to think about. And go ahead and play contact video 2. Now here I want you to pay attention to Sarah's body and her motion and what she does with her arms. And look at how she's changing it up and challenging. So she squats over. A lot of times dogs will cue off of that. I love the double pump there, the fake out. The dog's not buying it.
Good boy.
Sprints and runs away and then releases. The release is always very clean. It's verbal only. Here she breaks into some jumping jacks. Now, if you have not done this kind of proofing with your dog on the contacts, you need to. You're going to get a much better contact performance at trials. Here she's mixing in motion. So blind cross after. Here's a front cross. A lot of dogs will come off, especially the contacts on blinds and fronts. So most people force their dog to wait and then they go lead out and they actually call their dog to them before they take the next obstacle. You just don't have time for that in today's agility. So you want to be able to come in and blind cross, you want to be able to come in and front cross and know that your dog is going to stay in position until you give the word. A lot of you are having to slow down at the end of the dog walk and kind of wait in that area and then hold your dog there and be like, stay, 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 and that's what we want to get away from. Okay, and that requires proofing. So that's all about the handler. Now I've got a pro tip for you. It's a great one. It's the new way. It's really not that new, but it is a great way to introduce duration into your stay kind of control position behaviors. Start lines, contacts, the table. And instead of getting my dog on a table and then in my head thinking, okay, I got to get to 5. And so I put him on the table and I just stand here like this and I say 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Instead of doing that, I'm not thinking duration. I'm thinking distraction. Distraction, not duration. So that's where I'm going to do a jumping jack. And I happen to know if I do 7 jumping jacks, it's going to take 5 seconds to do it. Okay? And so I know I start off slow. 1 jumping jack. Next session, 2 or 3 jumping jacks. Next session, 4 or 5 jumping jacks. Then I go back to 1 or 2. I make it variable. And I tend to overtrain it. So I'm not training my dog to get off in 5 seconds. I kind of do a little more than that. And I use distractions because it kind of occupies the dog's mind. Let me put it that way. It occupies the dog's mind. When you're just standing around, the dog has the opportunity to start wondering, you know, what are they really doing here? What's the meaning of life? You know, when's this show going to be over? What are you going to give them for dinner? You know, they start thinking about a lot of things we don't want them to think about. We want them to be laser focused on you, okay? So that's why I like all the motion stuff, because they're like, oh, nope, that's a fake out, that's a trick, she's trying to trick. Okay, oh, that's the word. Okay is the word. I heard it, I can go now, and I can go and run all out. And so that's what we really want from our dogs, and that's why I like distraction rather than duration. So let's look at an example here. Sarah, go ahead and run the Emma video. This is our poodle, and Sarah taught her the frog trick, which is just you lay down and you kick your legs behind you. And Sarah is trying to add duration to this behavior because she would only do it for a moment, like not even half a second. But now you see she's getting really good duration, and the way she's doing it is by distraction. Distraction, not duration. Take a look here. See, she steps in one direction. Is the dog going to come with me? She's not, so she's going to earn the treat. She's going to get her hands up. She's going to jog in place. And so the dog learns, hey, I'm going to ignore everything about mom's body. And instead, I'm going to listen. And boom, there it is. Now she's up. And now she earns multiple rewards. So does everybody see how that works? So that is the category of handler. Handler voice, handler motion, handler position. Right? So if I set my dog up here, sometimes I want to lead out to the first jump. Sometimes I want to lead out 2 jumps. Sometimes I want to lead out 3 jumps. People make the very common mistake of leading out to the same amount of distance every single time. All right? I intentionally try and vary it. Even if I can lead out 3 jumps, I'm not always going to lead out 3 jumps. Sometimes I'll lead out just 1 jump and I'll switch my handling up just so I can vary my position on the start line. I'm constantly trying to keep the dog's mind engaged, testing them, keeping them very focused and attentive. Okay. Okay, let's move on to the third category. So we've talked about environmental distractions, handler distractions. The third one is your rewards. This one has to do with food and toys. And here we need to be very, very careful. This is a very special category. And it's special because we use food and toys to reward our dogs. What does that mean? Well, it means that if I have a beginner dog and I'm teaching them how to take this jump, I might have Sarah hold my puppy right here. I'm going to drop this piece of paper. That's my puppy Sarah's holding. I'm going to take her bowl of kibble here because my dog's very food motivated. I'm going to sit right here and I got the food. I'm going to rattle it around and we're going to say, okay, puppy, 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 puppy. And she's going to let go and the dog's going to take the jump. And the dog is going to target here to this bowl, right? And so when the bowl suddenly becomes something that they need to ignore, it's a distraction, we've changed the meaning of the food, right? The bowl. It used to be a lure, it used to be a target, and now it's a distraction. So we always have to be very careful with that transition because there are a lot of you out there, right? And this was like me in the first couple years that I was dog training. For me, everything was right or wrong. I didn't really know or understand or care very much about the dog's feelings and how they looked when they were doing behaviors, right? Now I know that I want my dogs to be enthusiastic, confident, because that leads to speed on course. And so what I'm saying is a lot of people would be a little hard on their dogs, right? So if I set up something where I have a distraction and the dog goes to the distraction, you will see people fuss at their dog. No, 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 don't do that, right? And the dog's like, whoa, whoa, whoa. I don't understand because for years I've been able to go and get food out of a bowl and now you don't want me to go get the bowl. You know, and they get very nervous about it. And then they may show some avoidance, right? Maybe I don't want to do that obstacle. Maybe I don't want to do this jump. Maybe I don't want to do agility with you, okay? So we need to be very, very careful when we're doing the distractions with food bowls and toys, not so much the distractions themselves, but how we deal with mistakes. And so I'm going to show you, I'm going to try and get my dog to make a mistake later. That's going to be the live demo. I'm confident. I think I can get her to make a mistake. And so I'll show you kind of how to work through that in a kind of safe way. Okay, so I believe we have a great demo here with Miria, who I will bring out for the live demonstration. For food, I like to start with empty dog bowls, okay? The dog bowl is very symbolic, you know. I think trainers don't use dog bowls enough. Dog bowls is the one thing where your dog sees or hears or smells a dog bowl, they know what it means. And they've been exposed to dog bowls like from before they went home with you, right? So there's a lot of meaning and value tied up there. And so I find it very useful as a training tool. I think the Manners Minder, or I guess the Treat and Train now, is basically a mobile dog bowl. And you're going to use that in very convenient and clever ways for dog training. But for those of you who don't have a Treat and Train, don't like using Treat and Trains, just get your dog bowl. It's going to work great. All right, let's see some distractions here. Go ahead and play the video with Miria. So her start line behavior is a stand. She does not know how to sit or down, just no idea at all. So here I'm just taking 2 lateral steps, seeing if she'll remain in position. So here I put her into the stand. So this is a combination of handler distraction, and then we're about to get to the reward distractions. So food and toys. I test her with both. She takes both now. When I first got her, she was not into food at all. Kind of had to teach her to like food a little bit. Here we go. This is a big one. A thrown toy. So get your dog on the start line, have your buddy grab a toy, and before you release them, you want to throw the toy across their line of sight. I wanted Sarah to roll it there, but that was good enough for me. Now this is the most common scenario. Sarah's got a bowl of food and she's rattling it behind her. At a dog trial, there's going to be half a dozen dogs and 10 other people behind your dog. And so that's a scenario that people don't practice enough. Distractions that happen behind the dog. Okay, and now I've got her here in a triangle of dog bowls. And there is food in those bowls. On the release, she decides, hey, I'm going to eat. Here I have a triangle of her favorite toys and her most favorite toy right in front of her. She is not to move a paw. She can look around, she can do whatever she wants, except for move a paw, and she doesn't. She does opt for the better toy there. All right, I think that's the end of this video. So
Somebody had a question
Yeah, go ahead.
this directly addresses. They said when you're using, okay, this one. When proofing, can you read it? You have the mic.
Sure. When proofing, Erica wants to know, when proofing, should you ever send the dog to one of the distractions as their reward or always reward separately? It totally depends on what your ultimate goal is. And I think for the most part, what you are talking about, the first option, which is you sometimes send to the reward there, sometimes you have them reward from your hand, sometimes you send them to a third place possibly. That's some high level stuff, differential reward cues that several top trainers are using now, right? So Jennifer Crank, our co-instructor of Bad Dog Agility, is doing that with all of her dogs right now. I am not. I have one generic and kind of get it, right? If I have a bowl of dog food and I say get it, I expect the dog to get it. And so that's problematic for me in the scenario that you've described, right? Jen's got it all worked out. Her dog does an obstacle, and Jen says this word, it means go get it from the manners minder, right? She says a different word, it means come get it from my hand. She says a third word, and the dog knows to go for the tug toy, all right? And that, to answer your question, that's exactly why those trainers have done that. They've created different reward markers, basically, right? For different rewards. So the dog knows exactly where to go, and they ignore everything else. All right, and it's fascinating to see them do that work. So I think did she demonstrate a little bit of that in the Manners Minder? She did a great Facebook Live on Manners Minder.
Yes, I think so.
I think she had a little bit of that. You might want to go back and look at that. But there are definitely people who are doing that. And so then let's get to people like me, which I think most people are going to be like me. You don't have multiple reward markers, right? So generally speaking, I prefer my dog to ignore everything except whatever I have in my hand. So it's problematic when I have these sessions and you're in the teaching phase. So in the teaching phase, I'm not immediately going to go to the proofing phase until my dog is fluent, right? Reaches a certain level of fluency. Now we do want to introduce proofing for most things as early as possible. But if I'm using it, let's say I'm doing a wrap and I have my dog wrap, and then in order to wrap them tightly, you'll see a lot of handlers hide a toy behind the wing, all right? This way they send their dog from a distance and the dog knows the toy is there, so they never jump long because they know that the toy is there, right? So that's a setup. That's what I like to call a setup. And in general, we don't want the dog to ignore that setup. We want the dog to pick up the toy, right? So it depends on the scenario. So I hate to say it that way, but it depends on what you are going for, what you're trying to teach, the skill level of your dog, their resilience to mistakes, and what you're trying to manipulate in terms of behavior that's offered by the dog. So it would depend on the scenario. Okay, is that good?
Yes.
Okay. We talked about that already. Okay, so now we have distractions. I want to talk about them as a prompt for training mode, because one of the very cool things about distraction training when you do it, especially for start lines and the stop contact behavior, you know all the funny stuff we're doing, our jumping jacks and things like that? When you do that at a dog show, very quickly it kicks your dog into thinking, oh wait, I am being tested. Remember, one of the big problems that people have is trials and practices are so different to the dog. The dog knows, they know when they're practicing and they got to listen, right? Otherwise they're not going to get their reward. But in trials, it's not the case, right? But one of the strong signals that, hey, the trial is just like at home is these testing things, okay? So we all do it. Jennifer did it at the World Championship, right? On her lead out, she has start line issues with one of her dogs. I've retrained several dogs. Gitchy was one of them. Gitchy and her mother, neither of them had start lines. They came to me and you would let them go and then they would just take off running. And so one thing you can do is to test them, right? So you would tell them to sit and then so this is not training in the ring. Your run hasn't started. The judges are still setting up the course and looking around and stuff like that. You'd set them up and then you would do one of your practice moves. I don't like to be as obvious as a jumping jack. What I used to do was do like this, right? So this is one of the jolts you saw Sarah do. You should do like this. I would pretend to do this, like, oh, boo, I'm scaring you, right? And the dog would be like, oh, You almost got me. You almost got me. I see what's going on here. I see what's going on here, Dad. This is a test. And no matter what you do, you are not going to trick me. I'm going to stay rock solid here on this start line, and it's going to work. Okay? That works beautifully. Okay? As long as you never let the dog break. Right? If you let the dog break and then you go and you keep running the course, even that behavior will be lost. Okay? You will lose the power of that as a signal. Okay? But that's one very cool thing that you can do. Remember, in general, do not lower your criteria in more distracting environments. If and I'm going to do this with Mira, I'm going to come out here and make it really tough for her. And if she messes up, I'm not going to suddenly change my criteria from 4 paws on the ground, and now I'm not going to say, oh, 1 paw? Okay, well, you didn't move, you just moved 1 paw. That's close enough because I made it so much harder for you. Okay, that's horrible training. Okay, the criteria is the criteria. So if she moves this 1 paw, that's a fail, and we're going to try it again. But before we try it again, I'm going to remove some of the toys, or I'm going to move the toys further away. Somehow I'm going to make it easier. I'm going to set her up for success. I might try once or twice without changing anything. She keeps failing. I'm going to make it easier for her. But I am never, ever going to lower the criteria. That's where a lot of you people are messing up. You say, well, my dog is so hyped up at trials. There's all this craziness. There's a kid eating a hot dog. There's these barking dogs here. They're so excited. It's the first run of the day. I didn't have a chance to run them around and throw a ball for them. I'm going to accept a not stopped A-frame as long as they hit it. Okay, that's a huge mistake. Absolutely a huge mistake. Can't ever do it. Must maintain your criteria. All right? Same thing when it comes to this proofing. Just because you made it hard, don't go out there rewarding effort. Okay, there's nothing more confusing to a dog that gets rewarded for good effort. Okay, either they get it right or they don't get it right, and you make things easier or you make things harder by proofing. Okay, but you don't change the criteria. That's where dogs get really messed up in the head and they don't know what to offer. They become very unsure and all kind of bad things happen as far as behaviors that they're going to offer you. Okay, I'm going to hop off my soapbox now. We're going to get to the demonstration with Miriam. I'm going to go over the 5 most common ones. I'm going to do a start line scenario with Miriam, and I think I'm going to set her up. I'm going to set her up like facing this way. I'll just make this the first obstacle. We'll do like 1, 2, or 3 or something like that. And I'm going to go over the most common scenarios that you're going to see, which is when you lead out with the dog, sometimes you got to talk to the scorer's table, and they do things like, what's your name? What's your number? Is this Maria? 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 And then you're like, yes, this is us, this is us, this is us. What's your dog's name? Maria. And then now you're saying your dog's name and now she breaks. Right? So you got to think about that. Your shoelace will often come untied, or you'll notice something's wrong. You got to fix something. That's number 2. Number 3 is you forget the course. You lead out and you kind of forget what the obstacle is. Number 4 is you have to talk to the judge for some reason, or the judge wants to talk to you. Right? The judge says, stop, we have a loose dog. And the judge is coming to talk to you and they get your attention. Right? Your dog has to be proof to that on the start line. And the 5th common one is you see a drop bar or an obstacle, most commonly the tire or the table, has not been reset properly, especially if you're the first dog in the class. So especially if you're the first dog in any class, you are the one that needs to look at all the equipment and make sure everything's set up properly. All right? And that's where, these are the kind of situations where you want to proof. And this is how agility proofing is going to be a little different from obedience proofing, right? This is very sport specific. These are things you want to look at. I'll show you how I teach my dogs that. Let me go ahead and grab her, or you can grab her for me?
Yep. What do you
Okay. Just any toy,
Okay.
like a stick toy.
Yep.
And then just her.
Okay.
And then,
I'm going to release it straight out to you.
I don't have the toy yet.
You need the toy first?
Yeah, give me the toy first. Okay, so while Sarah's getting Miria, she's going to give me the toy first. We'll set up and I'll show that demo. And then I'll try to do one where I try to induce some kind of mistake. I'll do a very hard start line thing. Yeah, just give me the old red one. There you go. Yeah, one time. Thank you. Okay, nice throw. Okay, so I got a toy here. I'm going to put my paper away. Hope I remember everything. All right, go ahead. Give it to me. Mira. Get it. That's a girl. Okay, I've got Miria here. Hopefully she doesn't knock my mic down. I'm going to set her up. We haven't done any kind of start line work. I did not practice this. So hopefully she breaks. If she breaks, I'm going to immediately switch gears and tell you how to deal with mistakes. Okay? So I like to set her up in the stand. I like to get my hands on her. Good girl. Good girl. Gotcha. Thank you. Good. So I'm going to set her up here. Usually I set her front first. Then I let her relax into the rear. And I usually tell her to wait. Wait. And once I say that, I expect her not to move. Okay, you come out here, getting ready, and then the scorer's table is there. And so then in practice, I just look, like I'm looking, I make some wavy hand signs. I say, yeah, number 24, yeah. Okay, and now she's moved. Okay, so now in practice, she's moved. So when your dog moves, she can't get a reward, and you're going to move them off the line. This is where a lot of people make the mistake. They're out here, their dog breaks, they reset them from a distance. Okay, we're not going to do that. Whether it's at a trial or practice, I'm going to go back and I'm going to go through the whole process again of setting her up. But you notice there's no punishment, there's no correction here. Okay? Wait. And you just do it again. And this time you want to make it a little bit easier. So I'm going to talk, but I'm not going to talk as long. I'm going to get her marker word. Yes! That's a girl. That's a girl. Very good. Okay? So that's what we want to do. So that, I'm glad she was able to break. Basically, you're going to never punish. That's number one. Never punish. Never get mad. Never yell. Number two, never reset from your position. Come all the way back. Move them off their spot. Go through your whole routine again. The whole thing has failed. This is like people who, their dog does the A-frame. They stop on the contact. Then they self-release. And the handler doesn't do the whole thing again. They just put them back on. The dog gets it right, then they go on. Guess what the dog has learned? Not to do the A-frame right and get it the first time. They learned I can come off early. I'm still going to get a chance to come on and get my reward. They've learned two different behaviors are acceptable. Okay? And so you don't want that. So do not reset your dog in that way. And then the third thing you need to do is make it a little bit easier. All right? So here, we're going to do the shoelace one now. Good girl. Good girl. Thank you. All right. Come here. Wait. Okay, I'm literally going to untie my shoe, tie it again, and before I get up, yes! Mark it and throw the toy for her. Okay? So these are the little proofs that you can do that are really good because they're going to happen to you at a trial. You do agility for 10 years, it is going to happen. The last one that I think is really good, it's really hard for the dogs because a lot of people put together start line routines where they're always looking at the dog, making sure they're not cheating, or they're very focused. And so when they become unfocused, when they look around, the dog's like, what? And if you look somewhere, the dog's going to start looking over there too. So they have to get used to that. Right? So I will even have casual conversations with people, but mostly in this example, we're going to do forgetting the course. All right. Thank you. Good. Get it. That's a girl. Good girl. Good girl. Gotcha. Good girl. You're good. Okay. So I'm going to put her up here and say, wait. Come out here. And I forgot the course. Scratch my head. Come look around. Look around. And then you know how you guys count. You're like obstacle 3, 4, front cross, 5, 6, and then around. All right, I think I got it. Yes. Okay, and then you're going to give them the toy. Okay, but you want to do that, and you want to look around in directions that you're not normally going to look around in, because that's what you're going to do at the trial. You're going to survey the entire course to try and get your bearings again. Your dog's not going to be used to seeing that picture. You can see that picture looks very different from some of the regular proofing you might do. Maybe you do the jumping jacks. Maybe you do those other things. But if you don't do stuff like that, when that happens, you're going to get tripped up at a trial. Okay? All right, so I think that's it for that demo. I was going to show you how to deal with a mistake, but since she made a mistake, yeah, we don't have to worry about it. I'll tell you that a tough one is to come up behind a dog, and I'll show you how tough that one is. They're almost always break. Just if you tell someone to circle around their dog, 9 times out of 10, that dog is going to break. And I think Mira's kind of like that too. But if you just stand behind them and make a noise, like how Sarah was doing with the food bowl, most of the time they're going to break too. So I'll try one like that. And then I'll show you one more time how we're gonna train that. Good girl. Gotcha. Thank you. Good girl. Okay, you ready? Wait. So we'll just try a circle. Okay, and there she comes. All right, so the circles are really tough. They want to watch you, and then they're here in position. You don't re-cue them. You come back, you say, okay. Now for dogs that get down, they're a little worried. Maybe you have them do something a little extra, right? Have them do a trick, a spin, or something like this. This dog is working right now. She's doing her trick. Her trick is looking at me, giving me that attention, right? She's not going to leave me. And now I can reward this. Yes. Right? So I think a lot of people would look at that and say, did he just reward her breaking the start line? No. He rewarded her for offering eye contact after a mistake had been made. Okay? And if you have other behaviors, spins, hand touches, that's a really good one. Simple things, keep the dog motivated, and then you're going to try again. Now, I kept to all the steps, so I didn't punish her. I didn't try and reset her from where I was. I came back, started the whole process over again. The third thing, what's that third thing I got to do? I got to make it easier. So maybe we're not going to go all the way around. Thank you. Wait. Yes. Good girl. So before I get directly behind her, right about here, and I think she might have broke here, right about here. Before I get all the way around, I'm going to go ahead and reward that. Okay? Remember the first time I was trying to do the whole circle, that was a fail. So now I'm going to go 1/3 of the circle, and now we can go back, and then we can try. We can try again. Okay, maybe we're going to go try and get one more circle. So let's try that. Thank you. Good girl. Ready? Wait. Okay, so she moved again. Okay, so I just move her off. You can give her the release. She's looking. She's looking, she's looking. Get it. That's a girl. All right. So I'm going to reward the attention there. And so I know that I'm going to have to break this into even smaller steps, right? So in my mind as a trainer, I was like, okay, we failed the full circle. We did a 1/3 circle. And then I basically went back and tried to do the full circle. So that's not going to work. So now I'm going to have to ping pong the dog. 1/3, 1/4, 1/3, half, 1/4, and kind of go back and forth. This is going to be something that's probably going to take more than one session to work on with this dog. And so I'm glad that she couldn't do it. I was afraid she would do it. And then it also shows you how dogs need behaviors to be maintained, right? They don't just magically stay for years, although sometimes they will. But this is a good demonstration of how to deal with mistakes. All right, and it is perfectly okay to get in another little behavior. For me, you didn't even see it. It was just that constant eye contact. And reward that before you try again, okay? Because when your dog makes a mistake, here, can I have you take her in? Can either of you take her in? And then we'll hit the questions as soon as you get back. Get it. Because as soon as the dog makes a mistake and you withhold the reward, even if you don't positively punish, you'll notice that your dog's attitude really goes down, right? And then you set it up again, and then they fail again, right? Because you haven't changed anything. And now you fail 2 or 3 times in a row, and now your dog, just when they do the sequence, they're just trotting, they're going slow motion, right? And this happens even with very fast dogs, even with very good dogs, right? They will stress. And so I am telling you, okay, it is perfectly okay. And the dogs understand right away, just the slightest hesitation. They know once you come back and reset them up, they already know things have gone horribly, horribly wrong. Okay? And so put that aside and then try again. Okay, I think that does it. And we're going to start banging out some questions now. For those of you who do need to leave and can't hang around for the questions, you will find the PDF with 70-something different suggestions for proofing at baddogagility.com/proofing, PROOFING. Okay?
It's up on the screen.
It's up on the screen right now. And we are going to start answering questions. I hope you guys found this presentation very helpful. We're just going to start scrolling through here. Yeah, so someone points out, go ahead and put that up there. Their dog refused to start a run once because the first obstacle was a tunnel, and she had never seen timing poles at the tunnel entrance. That is a really big deal. What I like to do is use fake electronic eyes. So I have these broad jump sticks. Can you get the camera back on? So these are for the 4 corners of a broad jump, and these are going to approximate the eyes. So let me put it, I think you guys can see it more clearly here. So I think the eyes are usually put, well actually I've seen it both ways, before and after, but let's say they put the eyes in front of the jump, the dog's going this way. So you put some extra ones here, like that, right? You can fake, they don't know it's a real laser or not, you know, just put a wad of duct tape over there on the bar, okay? Same thing with the tunnel. Right, so they've never seen the electronic eye. You're going to put it here, and that's what it's going to look like at a trial. A really great comment. Thank you for sharing. Okay, next one.
They won't be able to see the whole thing,
okay.
so go ahead and read it.
Eileen says, I've been using toys lately to proof weaves, but the problem with contact proofing for me is lack of space for full contact obstacles. Could something like an elevated plank work to proof the concept? Absolutely yes. You're not going to be able to do the really, really great work of obstacle, dog walk, obstacle. Those are the best. But you can do a tremendous amount. That video we showed you with Sarah and Venture.
Lots of it is, here it is, just in contact.
She's only getting the dog on the in contact. She's not even doing the whole dog walk. And in this way, you save some wear and tear on the dog, fatigue for the session. You can get in a lot more reps, a lot more rewards. Remember, we're worried about reward rate, reinforcement rate. How many great things can I get to my dog in a minute? And when you do this way, instead of a whole dog walk, it is better. Okay, Trish says, yes, my younger dog does not like sitting at the start line with his back to all the people and dogs outside the ring. Very, very common, especially for border collies. You know, when Miria, the dog you just saw, was young, like a year-old, the kids next door, a couple doors over, had a birthday party. You know, Isaac went, and I was like, they're all running around screaming, playing Nerf and football in the front yard. I'm like, I'm gonna go get our start lines over there, right? I took her over there, set her up a start line. She did it perfectly. She's watching all the kids, beautiful, okay? And then I just flipped her around. So she's looking at the street, and her back is to all the kids, so she can't see the kids. She couldn't do it, right? She kept wanting to turn around and see the kids, okay? That's just doing a 180. So think about that, right? This dog can totally stay and be fine, and kids are running around, screaming, coming near her, zooming by her, calling her name, it doesn't matter. Turn her back to her, couldn't do it. And that's what you're asking your dog to do at trials. Turn your back on all this potentially dangerous or interesting stuff and go do agility. And they just can't do it. Okay? So you want to introduce some of these distractions very early in the training process. Whichever one. Okay, what if your dog is not interested in toys at all? It makes training so much harder. You're going to use whatever reward is best for the dog. So you can use food. With Miria, it just happened to be toys, but we do this with food dogs as well. Okay? Trish says, I have issues with 2 on 2 off in trials with the older dog, great in class, but jumps off in trials. How do I mark without training in the ring? So for that, it depends on how you want to handle it, right? So for myself and for most high drive dogs, if a dog comes off the contact, I'm just going to leave the ring. They failed. I'm not mad about it. I don't punish them or anything like that. But we just leave the ring. The run is over. They have no further opportunity to get obstacles, tug, food, or anything like that because they failed to meet criteria, just like in practice. In practice, if they flew off a contact, you would not continue, right? Or you should not be continuing, right? And so people are very good. In practice, they're 100%, especially with an instructor there saying, hey, dog missed the contact. Do it again, right? But at trials, your instructor's not there to do that for you, for most of us, right? And then people just go on. So for myself, that's what I'm going to take. I'm going to remove the opportunity for them to get good stuff, but again, not in a positively punishing way, okay? Not one of those people you're dragging your dog off and yelling at them and calling them names and things like that. That is never appropriate, not good for the dog.
But you will on occasion mark for correct behavior.
That is absolutely correct. Very common for running contacts. Okay, let's say, I don't know how realistic this is. Let's say you have an instructor and then your instructor's like, I don't believe in leaving the ring. I don't want you to leave the ring with your dog ever. You know, and you're a newbie, you listen to this and you're like, well, who do I listen to? And then your instructor says, and if you ever leave the ring, I'll never let you train here again. Okay, and you live in a place where they're the only agility school for 500 miles in any direction. Okay, you really need that place. You like me, yeah, you like us, but you need this facility to train at. Okay, one thing you can do is ignore mistakes and go on. Just pause for a moment. Pause, right? Just like we saw Miria, right? She broke the start line. She didn't get to take the jump. She had to pause, right? And then we did it again. So you pause, and then you go on, okay? And if she gets it correct, all the time she gets it correct, stop contact, you mark it verbally, just like Sarah was doing. You don't have a clicker, but what can you carry into the ring with you? Your voice. So I say yes. So it'll be contact, yes, tunnel, yes, over, yes, weave, whatever the next obstacle is after that contact. Okay? So they always get a mark when they're correct, and the next obstacle comes right away. What happens if they fly off? Two things. They don't hear a mark, and the next obstacle is delayed. So yes, they're still getting paid. It's not as good as if I walked out of the ring with them. So yes, they're getting paid, but they're not getting paid as quickly. They have an immediate sense that something has gone wrong. Okay? And that's what we're talking about. Communicating to our dog, this is what we want, this is not what we want. Okay? And so I've given you two different ways of doing that. Okay, Carolyn says, any reason for the standing start line? No, this is just preference because at the time, this is like, I don't know, like a decade ago, right? Greg Darrett was making stand start lines cool. And I was like, that looks so cool. I'm going to do that. I'm going to teach my dog to do that. And so what I found was, the dogs would stand different ways and you would have to do a whole routine and line them up. I was like, whatever, I'm just going to pick my dog up, set their feet, and then do that, right? And I saw Greg do it one time. I was like, I'm going to do that. So it was actually a long training process, kind of longish, because I had to teach a dog, a border collie who didn't like to be touched, to handle touching. Even today, like, she doesn't really like me touching her too much, but it's like our thing. She's very physically affectionate with me now, and I can touch her and stroke her and all those things. So it was kind of good building exercise. But she has no idea what a sit is and a down is. Like, Hannah does it all the time. She walks up to her and she's like, Miria, sit. Miria, down. And the dog just looks at her, right? She has no idea what those words mean. She's never been taught it. Okay, so literally this is her start line behavior. She has no other control behavior. Anne says, automatic DQ if you touch your dog during a trial, right? AKC and USDA.
Answer that?
Yeah, go
yeah.
ahead.
So that basically this came up when you were talking about how when your dog fails, you don't try to redo it from a distance. You go and the whole thing is a fail and you start over, right?
Yeah.
And so I think in practice, 100% that's the way it should be. You shouldn't you should just consider you need a clean break between the fail and the reattempt.
Oh, but you don't need to touch your dog. The reason that I touch my dog is because that's how I set my dog up for the stand.
Right.
So if I'm going to use the stand and reset my dog, then I would do it in a way where I didn't need to touch my dog. But since I also happen to know if my dog breaks a stand at the start line, they're not getting reset. They're leaving.
Exactly.
We're out.
Right.
We're done.
So you are correct. In a trial, you cannot go back and touch your dog. You can go back and sit or down your dog. So you could move them off of their spot. So if they were in a down and they got up and took 2 steps forward, you could quickly go up to them. I believe you
can come back,
okay,
pull them back, reset them as long as they have not triggered the eye.
And
this is in AKC for sure, but you cannot lead out past the first obstacle.
Exactly.
So you have to change your plans.
Yeah. Okay.
Okay, Jan wants to know, what do you do for the dog that doesn't move except to sniff the ground? So that's a start line problem. And so
well, I guess it would mean like, what is your criteria? Is your criteria just, pause still, or is your criteria pause still, nose up?
No, I assume that this is a dog that you release them and then they don't come.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so you need to work on explosive releases. So these kinds of proofing games are really good for these kind of dogs, because the problem with dogs who don't get up is they're scared to get up. They have often been accidentally punished for getting up, yelled at, fussed at, made to do it again and again and again and again until finally they're like, I'm sick of it, okay, whatever, I'm just gonna stay here. But they're not listening for that cue anymore. They're checked out. They're checked out. We don't want our dogs to get checked out. So you just need to work on the start lines. Okay, Cindy says, oh no, I'm sorry.
Yeah, that's still all
okay, yeah.
Thing.
Laura says, do you think some of these things, person clapping, umbrella, could also be used? Yes.
To proof jumping, oh, okay.
I think that it can be used to proof jumping as well. And I think that's a great point, and that's something that nobody thinks about unless they have a bad jumper or a bar knocker. But yeah, you should think about those things. Okay, Jack wants to know, what if my dog breaks her start line, steals the distraction reward toy, she has just self-rewarded for the wrong behavior suggestions? Okay, so there's two kinds of rewards there, right? Toy, which should usually be tugging or even a thrown ball and a retrieve. So you just don't do that. So yes, they picked up the toy. So let's say I was proofing Miriam and I threw a bunch of toys on the ground, okay, and she broke and she took it. You know, which she's done many times in her life, learning stuff. I just don't play with her, right? I don't. She'll come and bring the tug to me, and I just don't play with her. And I say, leave it, you know, thank you, and she has to leave the toy. So there's no game. The game part is missing. Okay, now what about food? That's why I mentioned empty food bowls at the beginning. We want to start with empty food bowls. If the first time you use live food, I like to have a helper that is right on top of the food so that they can quickly cover it up or take it away. The other thing to do is I hold the food with me, use the food bowl as distraction, and if the dog is successful, I take my handful and I drop it into the bowl. Okay, but you're right. So you need to be a little clever about how you protect your reinforcement so they don't self-reward. But again, mostly they know something's kind of gone wrong. The one you have to be careful about is food, because food is food, as we've learned from dogs who, like, they get up on the counter and they want to eat something. You're over there and you're like, no, don't eat that. They just eat faster, right? So it's just as delicious. Whether you're angry or you're happy at them, it's just as delicious, those ribs. Okay.
I think that's it. Oh wait, there's
Is that okay? Leslie says, my dog, go ahead and put that one up.
Okay.
My dog is a scooter at the start line. Any ideas? Yes, this goes back to the criteria. You need a better criteria. As soon as I see a dog scoot, for me, that is a failure of criteria, and we have to start over again. And again, and again, and again, and again. And I'm gonna make my criteria very, very easy for this dog. I'm gonna have them sit down, and it's just gonna be 1 second. 1 second, then I'm gonna reward, and then 2 seconds, and then back to 1 second, and then 2 seconds, and then 1, 1, 1, and then 3, and then 1, and then 2, and then 1. And I'm going to keep doing that and really build a lot of value for never ever scooting. And anytime the dog scoots, they just have to restart. Okay? And if they scoot at a trial, guess what? My dog and me are leaving the ring. We're not doing it. For you, you want to give them a second chance. Remember, you can get one shot in AKC. Come set them up again. We also have the new FEO rules, right? So you can actually set them up repeatedly, right, at the start line.
FEO? Yes.
For exhibition only.
Yes.
Yeah. So you can do it over and over and over and over again until they're like, you know what, I give up. Apparently the rules are just as bad here at the trial as they are at home. I can't scoot, or mom's never going to let me take the first obstacle. I might as well stop trying to scoot. Okay, so it's criteria. It's criteria. Okay, Lois says, you were having your dog jump up on a contact to train. Can that make a dog take and trial jump up from the side too? No. I've never seen a dog like come near a dog walk and then jump up and finish it. I would guess that it's probably happened to someone somewhere sometime. 20 years, I've never seen it personally happen. I have seen dogs miss a contact, fly off a contact, and then go put themselves back on it because they were taught that. So you'll see that. But you don't see a dog like, you know, you're trying to get them to weave, the dog walks close by, and then they go up on the dog walk, flip themselves around, and then put themselves in a stop contact position. I've never seen that in 20 years. Okay.
Okay, so Jan clarified and said, no, he gets up when she calls, but I think what she says is, he sits and sniffs. So I think that is, you just have to decide does that meet criteria or not? Are you going to allow it or not?
So with dogs like that, we have a great article. We'll come behind and link to that in the next 30 minutes or so. We're going to send you right to the article you need. Your dog is basically checking out when you're leading out. And it's because you're not reinforcing within the first couple of seconds. You always reinforce after you've let out, and then you either come back and reward or you have them take the obstacle, but you're not doing enough rewards right away. So there's this dead zone, right? So if I do like this, if I say, okay, Sarah, come over here. Oh, here, let me use Hannah. Come here, Hannah. And then we'll do the joke. Yeah. So Hannah's our dog. Hannah, this is, okay, Jan, this is your dog. Her name is Hannah. I say sit, okay? And then I go all the way over here. And then here, I either say, okay, come get your treat, or I walk all the way back over here. So your dog, Hannah, knows she's going to get this candy when you're in two places. Here, right next to her, or there. And you're going to call her over to get the candy. What you have failed to do is give her candy during all this dead zone, okay? So what I'm going to do is, over 5 different reps, I'll say, Hannah, sit, and then I'll say, get your candy. Now she's going to come get her candy, okay? Then I'm going to do it again. I'm going to say, sit, then I'm going to come out, take 3 steps. Get your candy, right? And now she's going to get her candy, okay? Then I'm going to come back over here and say, get your candy, right? And then she's going to come over here and get your candy, right? This tells Hannah, right? Is Hannah ever going to look away from me? No. She's going to look at me when I'm here because she got candy here one time. She's going to look at me here because she got candy here one time. She's going to look at me here. She's going to look at me every step of the way. Okay, you're just not rewarding enough in this dead zone. Okay, it's like a $100 bill for you. If you're at your office and you walk by someone else's desk and their trash can is by the desk and you see $100, okay, the next day you're going to check that trash can again. You know it's stupid. You know there's no chance there's going to be $100 in there again. But you are going to check. You are going to pay attention to that trash can the next day. Think about it. That's what your dog is doing. Right? So give him $100. Okay. Helen says, what is the best way to train end performance on dog walk and A-frame? It depends on if you're doing stopped or running. That's kind of beyond the scope of what we're doing today. Basically, you want to deliver them lots of reinforcement in position. So what I like to think of as a stop contact is basically a stand with 2 feet on the contact and 2 feet on the ground. To me, that's the clearest criteria. There are other variations. One rear foot on, which a lot of people use very successfully. The method is less important than, because there's lots of different ways to get a behavior. It's like, what's the best way to teach a sit? There's a million ways to teach a sit. But the issue that you're really getting at is criteria. But if you're asking what's best, your choices are stopped and running. If you're going to do stopped, I feel personally the clearest criteria is 2 on, 2 off. It's, in my opinion, better than one rear toe and the other one-footed versions of that. That's just my opinion. Okay. Is that it?
That's it.
Okay, so I think we've answered everybody's questions. I hope you got a lot out of this proofing. Good luck, and Hannah's got a great joke for you. Do you got it?
Yeah.
Okay, go ahead. Oh, here, the mic, right here.
I just realized I haven't done the hokey poke in years. I guess I forgot what it's all about.
Nice, nice, nice. All right, thank you so much, everybody, for joining us. If you have any questions, please leave them in the comments below.